Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the exciting edition of Pardon Our Picks, where perfection is a work in progress. We're constantly working on that. I'm your host, Sam, and alongside me, as always, is Tarik. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well, Sam. How about you?
I'm doing good. Today we have a treat for you guys. We have two of our expert panel on with us. We have the ever-loved Brady. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me back this week.
And the super elusive Tom. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
First time this year.
I heard you were globetrotting for a while.
As far away from where I am as I could get and still be in the country.
Well, of course, our video is brought to you by Morningwood Crafter, and inspired by design, crafted by hand. And Into Deep, the band, they are playing at Fishhead on Friday, just outside of Baltimore. And on Saturday, they'll be playing at Champions in Frederick. So we had a really, really exciting week this week, didn't we, guys?
Yeah, we did.
Tom, that Baltimore game, I know you're a huge Baltimore fan. That was an incredible game. Tell me about it.
Well, Tucker has officially asked for buying rights to the Detroit Lions. Back-to-back games, 60-plus yard kicks to end and win the game, and then to seal it with a record-setting kick as time expires. You can't ask for anything more than that as a sports fan.
I agree completely. I mean, we saw some things out of both teams in that victory by the Ravens that Lamar really has taken that extra step as a pocket passer. But Detroit has been in every game that they've lost this year. You know, the Green Bay game, wheels kind of fell off in the second half, but they were in it in that first half, and they gave the Ravens a run for their money this week.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I mean, that was just to talk about an entertaining football game. I think I was glued to it the entire time. It was always something. I turned it on. I'm like, wow, this isn't quite going the way we thought it would. We thought it was just going to be a blowout, and then it turned out not to be. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this the same Detroit? And Brady, you got a point. They've been close, and it's one of those things we talk about all the time with. The records don't do the teams justice. And it's one of those stats that how much did you win by? Did you win by one? Did you win by a field goal? When did you score that last one? I mean, we talk about Tom Brady always a lot of times comes back, but should you have to do that? But that's when the clutch comes in. So
absolutely. And you're right. Detroit, funny enough, the first game, they were out of it and made their way back into it against the 49ers. Then, of course, Green Bay, they were in it and then got railroaded the second half. Baltimore, of course, they started scoring in the second half. Kind of, the defense held for a while. And they just let up those two big plays. And then, of course, Tucker with that kick. Man.
I do not think that we will see in any of our lifetimes that record broken. That kick, granted, yes, it was inside. Granted, yes, they missed the delay of game penalty, even though we've seen the conflicting reports that the TV clock does not match up with the field clock. But the only place that I can see that kick being broken is in Denver, in the beginning of a season when it's still hot. I mean, a kicker with that kind of leg, I mean, he made it 66 yards to the upright and hit the back end of it. It's not like it got a lucky bounce. Like, it went through and just bounced through.
Then you have to have a coach who trusts him enough, because he was missing at 65 in warmups. And then to have a coach say, no, we're not going to go for the Hail Mary. We're going to put it in Tucker, even though you were a yard and a half short in practice.
You're absolutely right, Tom, because he did that last week too. What was that on the on the video on the TV feed, you could see when Lamar was going for it, he's like, it was 4th down, and he's like, "You want to go for it? All right, we'll go for it." So he's completely trusting in his team. And I want to say this reminds me of another kick that I don't think went in the Ravens' favor. I think it was against the Browns.
Yeah,
That like it hit the exact same place, but they didn't count it because it didn't go past the TV camera, but it went past the uprights.
And then they went in after the game ended and flipped the official ruling on it in order to get it to overturn.
yeah.
A lot of good it did at Baltimore then.
Well, they're always changing those rules whenever they find something that is a flaw. Of course, it's funny when you think about kicks, and I know most people are probably kicks at this point. When you have to, the further out your kick is, the lower the trajectory is when you kick it. To get it that far, a lot of things have to go right, and he actually kicked it a little higher than most people, which is probably why he was having issues with the practice. But the lower you got to kick that ball, the more likely somebody's going to stick their mid up and hit it. So that's what makes it just that much more difficult to kick it further, because you see kickers in practice making the really long kicks, but they can't do it in the game, and that's why.
I will say, as much as we get irritated about. Go ahead, Tom.
A rookie snapper.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, so they had the wolf pack of the 3 of them together since they won the Super Bowl, and they let the long snapper go. This is, I think, undrafted, obviously, for a long snapper. First time doing anything that important in the NFL.
I will say about the rules, we were just talking about the rules being changed, and kicks are more entertaining and more relevant than they used to be 20 years ago. So, like, it's coming down to, I just seem to recall in recent games last year, a couple years, you go now and you go a couple years with, like, we never, like, yeah, you want to get the field goals, but they seem to, like, they've changed the rules to where it matters a little bit more. Like, I know you've done the kickoffs, and now they're shorter instead of longer. It's just they've tweaked the rules a little bit that I've seen more games come down to that field goal lately than I used to.
I think I can wrap this up very nicely for
Please do.
us. He kicked that ball almost 200 feet before it hit the ground. I don't think anyone in this call could run for 200 feet without hitting the ground.
I used
And
to.
that's my final point.
I used to could.
Does it count if my feet are constantly hitting the ground? With that said, of course, we have our standings to get to. Let's see how we did last week. It was a good week for some of us. Actually, for most of us, we were all above 500 last week. Of course, I've pulled into the lead by just a small margin, but it is a long season, so we'll see how things go in the interim. Brady with a pretty strong week last week, 12-4. Nice.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I tied again, just with somebody else.
That's right. You tied Brian with 10-6 after winning the previous week with winning week 1 with the with really good score. So these come back down to earth just a wee bit.
Yep, there we go.
And then of course Jessica tied for second right now with Brian. Tarik and Brady tied for third.
I'm coming though. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not over till it's over.
That's right. Tarik beat me last year. So
We'll hold on to that forever.
I know you will. Cherish that moment.
It's a good memory.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get on to our games of the week. We're going to start with Brady. Who's your game of the week?
My game of the week is going to be a little bit of a surprise to some people, but I have the Washington football team against the Atlanta Falcons. And I'll tell you why. Both of these teams are desperate for a win if they have any intention of making the playoffs this year. Atlanta's offense has looked good, if you want to say that, at times, and then abysmal in others. Washington's defense has been nowhere near where anyone has thought they would be this year, but they've had a really tough opening schedule. So I think these two teams match up really well on paper. And like I said, with their two divisions the way they are, teams are starting to really pull ahead. So this is the week where one of these teams needs to step up, get this victory, and really kind of guarantee themselves to not be out of it at week 4. I have the Washington football team winning this game. I think the defense kind of has a little bit of a field day with Atlanta's offensive line and gives Matt Ryan a little bit more than he can handle.
All right, Tom, what do you think?
I can't echo what he said enough. I mean, it's just you can't expect to go anywhere if you're 2-3 games, not only out of first place, but then out of 500. If you, it sucks starts to produce suck, and then next thing you know, you're 5-6 games under 500, and you're fighting for top 10 draft spot. So this sets up the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I mean, who do you got to win that, Tom?
I'm going to go Atlanta. I think home field is just going to be the edge factor. You got fans at least cheering you instead of booing you.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at it, and the Falcons do edge out the percentage of who's going to win that. I went with the upset on this with Washington. Don't really have reasons why other than what's been iterated already. I think they're just a little bit better, as much as it hurts to say that. I think they're just a little bit better, a little more overall than Falcons with their okay defense and good question mark offense that Brady put. So I think there's going to be a couple. I went through the list and I'm like, who's going to be an upset? And it's with things leaning towards the Falcons. I think Washington's going to be able to pull this out. How about you, Sam?
Well, you know how much I hate Washington. I'm just not a fan of them. However, considering Atlanta's best offensive output came against Tampa, and Tampa's been giving up points to just about everybody at this point. Washington, they've shown flashes on offense. Henneke is doing okay as backup, and Atlanta barely won last week on a field goal against an 0-3 team, the New York Giants. I got Washington in this game. I just think their defense is going to be the key in this one. All right, Tom, let's move on to your game of the week. Who you got?
I'm going to go Arizona and the Rams. Battle of the West. A revitalized Matt Stafford out in the West, getting away from the cold and the dome. Who knew? I think he's going to be the key. I mean, you looked at him last week, and he hasn't placed balls like that since early years in Detroit, since Hall of Famers were catching his passes. So I'm going Rams, and I think it's going to be probably by more than a touchdown.
That's bold. I am going to go even bolder with the 13.3% of people who are choosing the Cardinals over the Rams in this game. I think Kyler Murray has shown exponential growth this year. He has DeAndre Hopkins, but he's involving more members of that offense as he develops. But Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp have developed this work relationship to where Stafford can just throw it and he knows Kupp's going to catch it. I think we're going to see a lot of highlights from this game. I think it's going to be very close, and I really think it's going to be the first offense that blinks in this game.
That sounds really good. I'm going with LA on this. Watching some highlight reels from both these teams last week. LA just looks better overall. It's one of those teams that, excuse me, they got the quarterback, and now like the pieces are coming together. They're becoming a dominant force. We were talking last week about teams that used to not really be anything and now are posing a threat. Because you go back 15 years and we could pick. It's going to be the Patriots. It's going to be the Colts. It's going to be Denver. It's going to be Baltimore. Well, depending if Bowler was quarterback or not. But, but you knew who was going to win. And now it's starting. I'm seeing a shift. And I think LA is becoming one of those forces that it's going to change a lot. So I'm going with LA.
This game gave me fits looking at this matchup. Both of these teams are really good right now. LA coming off that big win last week against Tampa and actually, putting the hurt on them. Arizona, of course, having the scare in Jacksonville. But, considering the amount of weapons that Arizona has, and Arizona's gone last year, Arizona went in to LA and they had their way with them. Given, yes, it was Jared Goff at quarterback. And no, Matt Stafford's never had more than one Hall of Famer on his team besides himself, because Detroit never, ever has more than one on the team at a time. I gotta say, yeah, he is absolutely dropping dimes this year. He's having fun. He seems to be rejuvenated, and just like Tom said, he looks younger. He's acting like he's a younger man. But I got the upset in this one. I have Arizona winning this one.
Ooh,
LA.
what a twist.
Indeed. Let's twist on over to Tarik's game of the week.
All right, so I got Baltimore and Denver. I'm sure some people are going to be like, what, really? Your two top teams? Like, yeah, I know. But we got the undefeated Broncos and the shoulda, woulda, coulda undefeated Ravens.
Can't argue with that. I mean, they're two really good teams right now.
Yeah, so this is another one of those teams that like quarterback came in, and this one kind of shocked, and not a lot of people put a lot of stock in Bridgewater. He hasn't really done anything, but he seems to have hit his stride. He's got the weapons and the support that he needs. You got the Ravens that are doing what Baltimore does. They're like, we're going to do this. We're going to hold in. We're going to have grit. It's going to work. So this to me is just going to be really interesting. This is a lot of people are holding out, going to see whether Bridgewater and whether the Broncos can actually do it. Because they have 3 wins, but are the 3 wins against really good teams, or are they against the bottom end of the league here? So how they show up at home. This is in Denver, right?
Yes.
So how they show up at home against Baltimore, who is tough. They're a tough team to beat no matter where they go. So this is going to be interesting. And in the words of Sam, I struggled. I struggle with this one because it could go either way. Like Baltimore is able to pull it out in the end, but Denver's been pretty dominant. They swept last week, but that was against the Jets. So I'm going with Denver just with I believe the upset on this. I think it's going to be very close, and I think it's going to come to another one of those come down to the wires, especially with Brady saying, like, this could be another kick that decides it. I think it's going to be hit for hit, blow for blow in this one. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, it's the game of struggles. Do the injuries catch up with Baltimore? I mean, they lost somebody else last week, a rookie on the defensive line. It's just, how long can they sustain this and still be viable in a win column and viable for a playoff push? But I think they kind of break their streak this week and win by more than a field goal in the last seconds. Last quarter, but I think they hold out and steal this one from Denver.
Brady?
I agree. I think Denver's resume this year, they've played good football, but they played good football against bad teams. I think it's going to be really telling for Denver how they play this game, whether this 3-0 record is an indication of them or their opponents. I think Baltimore is going to come out of the gates realizing that they oversimplified the offense last week, and we're going to see more of the RPO plays. And I think the defense is going to have a little bit more speed to it this week. I think it's going to be a closer game. I think Baltimore is going to only win by about 10. But I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch because I think Teddy Bridgewater has found himself a nice home in Denver.
I agree that Teddy's he's doing a lot better than he was in Carolina. Carolina didn't really have a lot of line around him to help him, and he was just coming off an injury and all that. And it wasn't a good fit for him. Denver's a good fit for him right now, and I mean there is that possibility that the kick record gets broken this week since it's in Mile High. The ball tends to travel a little farther, but given that Baltimore has had its issues on defense, all the injuries, they've got band-aids everywhere at this point. Denver's defense is good. That offense has been pretty good, and yes, it's been against not the greatest competition, but Denver's a force to be reckoned with this year. They are at this point. I think they're a surprise 3-0 team that very well could make a lot of noise in the playoffs. But Baltimore, coming off that close win against the Detroit Lions, almost a loss. I think they go into Denver and get the victory. I think it's going to be close throughout most of the game. I do think that Baltimore starts to pull away late. So I have Baltimore. All right, let's move on to the next game. I get to talk about this one. The Dallas Cowboys at home playing the 3-0 Carolina Panthers with Sam Darnold at quarterback. Who could have seen that coming? Not me. Brady with the pick on that one. Dallas, of course, this close to being 3-0 themselves. Of course, they ran into Tom Brady in the first week. They lost on a last-second field goal. You never give Tom Brady time. That being said, they looked impressive in the rest of their victories. They absolutely demolished Philly last week. And Carolina has looked good, surprisingly to me. But I think that this is where Cinderella's pumpkin comes to fruit. I know, horrible analogy. This is where the Carolina Panthers lose. I think Dallas at home, even with their injury problems, come out with the victory, and I think it's not going to be close.
4 words: no McCaffrey, no victory. Cowboys in this game.
I think that's the shortest review preview that Brady's ever given.
It was like a Hall of Fame speech for somebody. Ladies and gentlemen,
He's out.
I really can't. I mean, this seems to be a theme tonight. I mean, we're looking at this as we got a couple of these games that like we would pick to go against each other because it's not like we're seeing some of these records going against each other. See, like, all right, we're going to lose some undefeateds this week. Cowboys aren't undefeated, but they should be. Their kicker made a couple of field goals in that first game. This would be 3-0 and 3-0. I think Dallas just has more of their stuff together. They've shown to me to have more stuff on them, despite the quarterback issue. So I'm going with Dallas. Tom?
Darnold will make it a little interesting for a while just because I think he's played better than his entire career in New York. But I don't think it's enough for Dallas. I think Dallas pulls it out, and the second half, it starts to get wide.
all right. Let's move on to the last game of our week. We have the Monday night game. Las Vegas Raiders going against those Los Angeles Chargers, almost playing in the same stadium, but circumstances changed. Who you got, Brady?
So I think this is going to be a very interesting game. There's still a couple unknowns that we don't know, like whether Josh Jacobs is going to play for the Raiders or not. But I have the Chargers winning this game. I think they come out of this last week beating the division rival Chiefs, riding high. That offense is firing on all cylinders. And Las Vegas has played 2 overtime games in 3 weeks, and they're starting to show some wear and tear on their defense. I think the Chargers have too many weapons. I think the Raiders are going to make a go at it. Derek Carr is having an MVP season, but I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them in prime time.
All right, Tom, what do you think?
See, I think kind of the opposite. I think the Chargers are going to have a little bit of a letdown after taking down the Chiefs. I think Vegas is gritty enough against the Pretty Boy Chargers. I think Vegas is going to grit it out and take it and keep rolling.
All right, so we're at 500 here. We got Brady picking one, Tom picking the other. This is hard as a Broncos fan. I want both of these teams to lose. That's not possible.
I mean, they could tie.
Yeah, they could tie, which
Could not win.
Babe Ruth it. Call for the tie.
which who was it that said years ago, like, I didn't even know the NFL could tie.
Donovan McNabb.
There you go. Haven't heard that name in a minute. So yeah, this what, Tom?
Chunky soup.
So Chargers got some weapons, but Vegas is just they've gone tough against everybody. They gave the Ravens a good run for their money. They've been tough. I think they're going to be able to eke it out. I think it's going to be close. But I think Vegas is Brady brought up a really good point of them going into overtime, so they could be tired and showing wear. But Chargers are beat up from going against the Chiefs last week. So I'm going with the Raiders.
What's funny is there's a couple games this week that could change the entire dynamic of the AFC West.
Mm-hmm.
If the Vegas Raiders win and the Broncos lose, they'll be in first place.
Yep.
If the Chargers win and the Broncos lose, you got 3 teams tied for first, and Kansas City probably right behind them. Funny enough, they are in the basement for the first time since 2015 of that division.
Who else called that this year?
But
what else did you call Brady? What about Green Bay? What about
Super Bowl?
Depends on which Aaron Rodgers shows up that night.
yes, all predictions aside, of course. Who am I kidding? That's what we're doing here. Given San Diego, see, did it again. San Diego.
Pulling a Sam.
Oakland in San Diego.
They used to be in San Diego. But the Vegas Raiders going against the Los Angeles Chargers, which is still weird to say. Vegas barely got by depleted Miami team with a backup QB. Granted, Brissett was pretty good, but they were this close to tying in overtime. So, and the Chargers, of course, they did go into KC and beat them last week, which was impressive in and of itself. Given that both of these teams, they've struggled a little bit in previous games before that, I have the Chargers winning this one in a surprisingly exciting game.
50-50.
All right. Let's go on to our quick hitters. Let's see what we got at the top with the 0-3 Jaguars going against those surprising 2-1 Bengals.
I don't think this is a hard one to pick. I'm going Bengals on this.
I agree. Jamar Chase has fixed his drop issues, and he's going to have a big game. Bengals by a bunch.
Bengals, Jacksonville has not shown a thing at all. Unless you're returning field goals, then
there you go. That's the only thing they.
And unless you can draw that up 3-4 times a game, I don't see how it will work.
No, shades of LSU over Alabama, though, many years ago. Or was that Auburn over Alabama? I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Bengals in the victory. Let's move on to the next game. We have the 1-2 Texans going against those 2-1 Buffalo Bills.
Tom?
Bills. Just Bills. Enough said.
I'm going Bills as well.
Backup quarterback for Houston, like things couldn't get any worse. Bills.
You know, backup quarterback hasn't looked terrible in Houston. Doesn't matter. The Bills are much better. Bills. All right, we got the Detroit Lions, still 0-3, even though a couple of close calls, going against the 1-2 Justin Field led Bears. Brady, would you like to take this one?
I know this is quick hitters, but I'm just gonna say 1 net passing yard last week for Justin Fields. This is where the Lions get their victory because I refuse to put any faith in that young man until he shows otherwise.
Tom?
I can't put it any better than that. I mean, I think he's still getting sacked right now. So, Detroit.
He's just laying down to go to bed. He's just getting sacked.
In flashbacks from Nom.
You weren't there, man.
Our one viewer is gonna hate us.
I know I've changed a couple of my picks through this. Hopefully Sam hasn't gone off of our Yahoo sheet too much yet. Yeah, I mean, everything's been said. I think the Lions they've shown to be too good to be losing constantly, and Chicago, yeah, Lions.
It's funny. I was listening to the radio at 4:30 in the morning, and they were talking about Justin Fields and the fact that they thought he should have been starter in the week 1, but apparently he just wasn't ready.
That's something I got wrong.
That's okay. I got another rookie quarterback wrong in the Jets. That was a really bad.
We're a work in progress.
Yes, but I have the Lions in this one. All right, let's move on to the next game. We have the Indianapolis Colts going against the Miami Dolphins. 1-2, of course, both injured quarterbacks, but I believe the Colts have Wentz starting this week. And I think that's going to get them to 1-3.
I don't know. I as much as I used to be a Colts fan, I can't click that Colts icon right now. Unfortunately, I think they're going to 0-4. I'm picking Miami.
I am going with Sam on this one. I'm going with the Colts. I don't think this is going to be a pretty game. But I don't know. I didn't feel good about picking either team, and I had to pick somebody.
Yeah, I feel dirty either way.
Guys, breaking news. Tarik actually picked against his team.
See, I'm going to go Indy. They got a touchdown on the ground this week. I mean, who ever heard of such a thing?
Not since Edgerrin James.
Just backup quarterback in Miami, maybe Wentz starting. I'm going to take the flyer, take Indy.
All right, let's move on to the next game. We have the Cleveland Browns this close to being 3-0, of course, against the Minnesota Vikings, just getting their first victory.
Brady, what do you think?
I think the Vikings are one of the better teams that don't have a winning record. I think they win this game.
Tom?
I think the Browns are going to take it. I think Baker looks better than he did last year. I think they're going to have a good game.
Yeah, I think living at the stadium's doing well for him. So I think I got Cleveland in this.
Does anybody want to buy some shoulder pads?
Those my shoulder pads?
Make me an offer. Check. I think they're going to be beating the Vikings this week. I got the Browns in this one. It's kind of hard to pick against them. Let's move on to the New York Giants 0-3 against the 2-1 New Orleans Saints.
Tom?
And Giants got to get a win sometime this year, right?
No.
No? Good, because I don't think it's going to come against the Saints.
Nice.
New Orleans.
I was this close to thinking you were picking that.
Yeah, New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. Nothing else to say after that. You win, Tom.
You know, clean sweep, New Orleans. Giants are absolutely horrible. Let's move on to the Tennessee Titans going against the 0-3 Jets. Do the Jets get a win this week? No.
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 All right.
Moving on.
On to the next game. KC at 1-2 going against the 1-2 Philadelphia Eagles. Tarik.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are gonna bounce back this week. I don't think the Eagles are good enough to do anything against them. I think this is going to be pretty start dominant and dominant. I'm going with Chiefs.
I agree. As ugly as the Eagles defense looked against the Cowboys last night, the Chiefs are going to make it look that much worse.
Mhm.
With or without Andy Reid on the sidelines, KC should pretty easily win this game.
Yeah, I hope Andy Reid feels better. Victory this week will probably make him feel a little better. KC for the win. All right, let's move on to the Seattle Seahawks. Losers last week to the Minnesota Vikings. Going against the San Francisco 49ers.
What do you think, Sam?
You know, I two pretty good teams in that division, one of which is just getting their legs under them. I have Seattle to win this.
I have San Francisco. Seattle hasn't shown much comeback this year.
I got Seattle. I kind of as an upset. I think they're just going to be able to pull this one out. Tom?
I got San Fran. I think they've shown just a little bit more, and they're at home. I don't like Seattle on offense. It's just not thrilling me.
Yeah, they've been a bit of a struggle this year, but and of course Tyler Lockett may be injured. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's move on to the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger going against the Green Bay Packers.
If Joe Burrow can do that to your defense, what can Aaron Rodgers do? Packers by a bunch.
I want to just kind of like just poke it at Brady just to go, really, the Packers? I have the Packers to win, but I don't I don't think it's going to be by a bunch. I think they're going to squeak it out.
I think if Ben Roethlisberger can string together 15, 20 play drives for him to, because that's as far as he can throw the ball, I think he's still going to lose. So Green Bay probably by 14.
I love it. I love it.
I just love
Ben
watching
Roethlisberger.
Brady's face.
I'm waiting for him to pull the rug out from underneath him, and he's like, "No, it's fine. You're good. Keep standing."
Given that Roethlisberger's arm is just about falling off, he's Brett Favre in his final year at this point. I have
No pictures, please.
I got Green Bay. And finally, we have the Sunday night football matchup. The Tampa Bay Tom Brady is going against his former team in New England. Who you guys got?
Yeah, I'm going with the Tom Brady's on this. I think he's gonna show it to his former team. He's just gonna Tom Brady it. That's a
Yeah,
now.
same thing. Tom Brady for the win.
I agree. Tom Brady is going to beat the not Tom Brady's because Tom Brady lost a football game last week.
You know, Tom Brady's former coach and good friend is still up in New England. It's not Bill Belichick. He hates that guy. I got Tom Brady winning this one.
I was about to say his friend followed him down to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna rename the city Tom Brady.
If he brings another championship, don't hold it past him. People in Florida are fucking crazy.
They are. That's it for today, folks. Thank you for joining us. Of course, as always, if you think we got it wrong, let us know in the comments. It's been fun.
Sure. Click that like button. Let us know you liked it. Subscribe so you know when our videos, so you have more content like this when we don't have an adult in the room. As always, I'm Tarik.
I'm Sam.
I'm Brady.
I'm Tom.
And you have a great football week.
Bye, guys.